with my congregational family. If you have to celebrate your birthday, doing it with hundreds of people is a great way to do it. So thank you.
And I'm proud to be part of this Temple family. You guys have done such a fabulous job with this, and I'm proud to be included in this program. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Linda. Let me introduce you. Linda is been practicing psychotherapy for more than 3 decades in Orange County. Is a screenwriter, is a columnist, is really a therapist extraordinaire. And for purposes of this introduction, is also a founding member of Congregation Shir Hamalot with her wonderful husband, Hai, 53 years ago. Am I correct in that?
You're correct in that, and I'll even add something to it. It occurred to me this morning when I was trying to make myself look okay enough to to do this, that 50 years ago, 50 years ago, we didn't have Zoom and we didn't have internet, but I was doing the same program with Rabbi King.
No kidding.
That's right.
Wow. Wow. May he rest in peace.
May and rest in peace. Yes, my
You
friend.
know, actually, Rabbi DePaulo's beautiful program right before is just a great introduction to what we want to do today. First and foremost, if you're able to turn on your screens, because I can tell you, it's one thing as a teacher to teach to names as opposed to faces, which is also a challenge. It's virtually impossible to do psychotherapy with a blank screen. So if you are able to open your screen, that would be great. If not, it's okay. Totally understand, but we just like seeing you because what we're about to do really requires eye-to-eye connection. And so I'm going to begin by just asking Linda some questions and having a little conversation. But the hope is that we're going to open it up. Think of a call-in show where you have an issue or your friend has an issue that you'd like to discuss and hear what some insights might be. For those who don't know, I'm a rabbi, but I'm also a licensed marriage family therapist. So this is a world in which I live. And of course, Linda is a psychologist for many, many years, really bringing her wisdom to Orange County for so long. So let me begin, Linda, by asking you a simple question. Why does talk therapy work?
Well, one of the best things that best things that I know that is healing is being heard. If you know that you're being heard, um, that's a healing thing. If you know that what you say is being communicated to somebody who's really listening and can respond to you and not just thinking about words that are going to come out of your mouth next, it's a gift. And in the crazy world that we live in, some of these things are best said to people who are in roles like you and I play, as opposed to using the people who you love best as dumping grounds. You know, I sell energy. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's what I'm selling. People come into me and they dump all their stuff and they say, "Wow, this was really great, thanks," and they and then they leave, and they go back and live their lives. And I'm thinking, gee, I'm throwing them out into the world. I hope that they really better.
Yeah,
So that's a big function. Yeah.
absolutely. I like to describe it as holding people's hearts gently in your hands as they share themselves with you. And it's really quite an honor, whether it's being a rabbi or a psychotherapist, to have people share with you and be vulnerable with you without that person feeling judged. And that's quite
Trusting you with this heart that you're talking about. You're much more poetic than I am, but yes, trusting you with their soul, with their heart, with their secrets.
absolutely. And so, this pandemic has been really painful. My brother, Daryl, who is a leader in the mental health world as well, wrote an editorial for the LA Times in May, talking about the next pandemic. And that is a mental health pandemic, which I think we're already in. But post-pandemic, I am worried about the mental health effects, certainly on our children, not being in social situations, particularly in school, but also for relationships, people living together 24/7 for year in and year out, or month in and month out. I don't know that our minds and emotional life was meant for that. Do you have some thoughts on that, Linda?
Well, yeah, yes, lots. There are. I can tell you that I personally have had a really difficult time. As we spoke about, we did this a few months ago, you and I,
Yes, we
and we
did.
were just talking about resilience and how do you get through this pandemic. And I've always thought of myself as a secret introvert, which introverts do better in a pandemic than extroverts. But the reality is I'm suffering too, along with everybody else. And it's really difficult be to feel isolated and if you're in a house 24/7 with somebody and there's no relief, then you got nobody else to holler at or vent to, or and that person is dependent on you for their energy. The it's a very difficult situation. I a long time ago I wrote I had a card that I was handing out to everybody that said, I was quoting Shakespeare, who wrote about something called the kind kiss, and he wasn't just talking about kissing. He said the kind kiss is the ultimate demonstration of love, and maybe during this pandemic that's even more important than otherwise. And I had 6 questions. Do you greet your spouse with a smile and a kiss? You know, people walk in the door and don't even look at their spouse. And feel that they should. I told him I love him like the guy in Fiddler on the Roof. I told you I love you. What do you want me to do? I don't need to do that again. you know, Kind of thing. Do you keep your spouse's secrets? That's a biggie. Do you know your spouse's bucket list? Do you know what it is they want most? What are their values? What they want to accomplish in this world? What they want, the fun they want to have? Um, do you make him look good? Do you make her look good? Do you ask their opinion and then listen to what they say? And you don't have to act on it, but acknowledge that you've heard the answer. Most people ask the question and then say, "That's fine, I'll do what I want." You can do what you want, but at least acknowledge that you've given consideration to that which is being presented to you. And the last two, the one is, do you accommodate to each other's sexual needs? That's whatever that means in whatever stage of life that you're in. And do you try to look your best to please him or her? It's really easy. I keep hearing people, I'm in the house, who needs makeup? Well, I do. I don't know about everybody else, but I look better when I put it on.
You basically, I mean, I would entitle those 6 questions back to the basics, but it's easier said than done. I mean, I often joke that the commandment, honor thy father and mother, was written not because it's easy to do, but because it's challenging to do, right? And so too with the relationships we're in, whether it's with our children or with our spouses or significant others. I mean, I'm really big on please and thank you. Like my wife tends to make dinner most nights, and I always say thank you and always am grateful. At least I try to be. And then when I'm not, I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I haven't been as grateful, because we'd say thank you to the waiter who served us at the restaurant, but we don't necessarily
That's
take
right.
the time to thank the person who we're supposed to be in the closest relationship with. And so it's so back to basics, and we forget that kind of, and it's really, really important. Um,
And I just want to underline that and say,
Please.
don't underestimate the power of praise. There's always, catch your partner doing something right. He or she has to do something right. And even if you're angry, catch them doing, don't concentrate on where you want them to go, not on what they did wrong. They probably did 20 things today that were right. And if you keep talking about the one that where they screwed up, it's like, bad Linda,
It's it's really true. I mean, it's so simple, it's so basic, and yet we forget it. We tend to take for granted those closest to us as opposed to those who we're just acquainted with. So, what I'd like to do is to invite you to think about some questions, and then to raise your hand either in the chat or just in the screen here. But in the there's a symbol you can press under participants that will raise your hand and we'll call upon you. But before we do that, as you're thinking of your question, I want to call upon Susan Taylor. Susan is a member of our executive board. She's also the CEO of College Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital in Costa Mesa. And Susan, Linda and I in our private practices tend to deal, I wouldn't say with serious mental illness, although we do, but those who are really suffering with severe mental illnesses usually end up at College Hospital. And just curious, your 2 or 3 minutes take on how the pandemic has affected the severity of mental health in Orange County.
Thank you, and I appreciate being able to contribute this morning with both you and Dr. Algazi. I have seen two big impacts so far. One with regard to our adolescents. Prior to the pandemic, certainly we had adolescents in our hospital. We have a 17-bed adolescent unit, and they were coming in. We have seen a much more significant need for adolescent services. And I think that's largely attributable to the social isolation and just sort of the overall nature of the pandemic. We've also seen a very significant uptick in substance abuse disorder. People are at home, they're engaging in substance abuse activities a lot more. And I think both of those two things are going to continue to fall out. We will be experiencing both of those for a long time. So from a provider standpoint, we're really ramping up to continue providing these services well past this pandemic. This is going to be something we're going to experience for quite some time.
Thank you, Susan. And just a commercial on behalf of a project Susan and I are intimately involved with. It's called Be Well OC. Be Well OC is a mental health movement that Orange County is leading the nation in, where instead of mental health providers competing against each other, they're working with each other. And it's resulting in, but not exclusive to, building mental health hospitals, much like College Hospital. But what police departments do is if somebody's having a mental health crisis, they'll drive them to the emergency room. And then the orthopedic surgeon, who's the guy on call, will try and fix your mental health problem. We just opened our first Be Well hub in the city of Orange on Anita Drive. And what makes it so special is that it's a private partnership between a number of different hospitals. And then the Board of Supervisors gave $16 million to this project as well. And we're going to build 2 more in Orange County, and they're going to be transformative as College Hospital is as well, to really treat these significant crises. They're also building other platforms. Do you know that 80% of mental health issues can be solved by a provider crisis in the moment, can be solved on the phone, and somebody can get them into the treatment they need instead of spending all the resources we do. But people don't know how to access it. So they're developing an app. Within 3 clicks, you can get to the mental health provider you need. There are so many things going on in Orange County in the mental health world. You all ought to be proud that your tax dollars are being spent on working on these issues, because we're going to lead the nation in how we're approaching mental health here in Orange County.
Congratulations, that's wonderful. What a wonderful project.
Yeah, it's really significant. Happy to share with you more about that at another time. In fact, Marshall Moncrief, who's the CEO of this movement, will be my interviewee in May, I believe, for influencers and inspirers. So Leonie Kramer, first one to raise her hand and ask a question of these mental health people.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much. Happy birthday once again. So you know this, Rabbi, but some of my good friends know this too. I live in a house divided politically, and this year was a huge deal. And normally it's just me and my spouse, and we have figured out how to make this work. But now I've got my 2 millennial children home, and they're very passionate in their beliefs. and they tend to side with moi. So we've had situations literally where somebody has run from the table, at the dinner table, so upset about what's happened politically in the discussion. And I know it's one thing to say, okay, those things are off limits, but when the balance tips and you have young people who you really admire for their passion and their beliefs, how do you handle that situation?
Well, that's a great opportunity for Linda to answer this question.
I was just going to say that was a great opportunity for you to answer that, because that's really tough. Everybody's having that, and you know, it's hard when it's in your house. People are having that with friends as well. You know, people have broken up friendships and say, you know, contact me when all this nonsense is over, and we, you know, we can be back on the same page. Again, it's the same. You got to get back to feeling heard. You know, if you, instead of trying to answer to the question, if you say, you ask the person who's the most upset, will you talk about more? Would you explain to me what it would be to make you feel better? You know, what would have to happen here, if, you know, to make you feel better, to make you feel heard, and then demonstrate that you're listening. You know, you know, there are good people on both sides. I can't go for that, but I do think that we live in a country with a two-party system that I'd love to see continue, and I want there to be a way that unity is possible. You know, and so if you switch the subject from the fact that one of your children is angry with you to the fact is, what can we do to make unity possible? You might get a different kind of a conversation.
Yeah,
You know?
thank you, Linda. I mean, that's really insightful. Leonie, I've thought about this long and hard, and I have two thoughts. One is a real life example. During the summer, during the Black Lives Matter protests movements, I have two Jacobs in my life. One is my stepson and one is my son. One Jacob wants to be a police officer and is a little right of center. The other Jacob is, if you can go further than left of center, that's where he is. And during the experience of the summer, both were texting me, can you believe what this one did? Can you believe what that one did? Can you believe what this one did? Not referring to each other, but what was happening in the news. And I had to be very careful which Jacob I was responding to as I was texting away. And it really made me think about my own thoughts. And what I tried to do with both of them is to take the emotion out, because both were elevated, as I'm elevated about all these issues as well. But, you know, as a rabbi, I don't get the luxury always of being so elevated about the issues. The second thought I had, Leonie, and this is I think what you're getting at. I think any therapist will tell you that we believe in boundaries, that boundaries are a healthy thing to have. But there's a piece of us that don't believe we should have boundaries with our family. Like, well, this is my father, this is my brother, why should there be any boundaries? But the truth of the matter is, sometimes for healthy relationships, there need to be some boundaries. And the problem, of course, is if your sibling or your father or your grandfather believe one way politically and you believe differently, the question we ask ourselves is that who this person truly is? How could the person I love vote for this person? And that is a cognitive dissonance that is so hard for us to figure out and to balance and to make sense of. And so sometimes creating a few more boundaries helps with that. But again, easier said than done, particularly when you're living in the same house as adults. Easy to do when the person's 10 years old, but when you got people in their late 20s or early 30s living with you, that's a challenge. And so I think take the emotion out, and if need be, create the boundaries, because you want to maintain that which is good about the relationship instead of only focusing on the differences.
I have
Thank
something.
you.
I have something that might help. Just as a point of conversation to bring up, when I was reading something recently by Susan Sontag. You know, she's a philosopher, writer, and she said, I'm not the rabbi here, but what she said was, I want to make a New Year's prayer, not a resolution. I'm praying for courage. And I don't pray much myself, but I'm praying for unity. And I think there's hope in looking for unity. So that might be a point of conversation that you could have with your kids.
Beautiful. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Leonie.
Thank you, Leonie.
So Bonnie Praver, go ahead, and then Joy LePatner, and then Ruth Schulman. So Bonnie, Joy, and Ruth.
Okay. We've had a lot of talk about unity, and it seems to me, and I certainly don't have anywhere near the professional training either of you do, but I have children with different opinions and grandchildren with different opinions from their parents. Unity is a faraway goal to me. I think we have to start by praying for consideration of each other, of listening to each other and being kind, you know, bringing down the temperature so that we're respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to look at it as, you know, however many steps it is to get to something approaching unity, which may simply come down to being considerate of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I had a professor who taught me you can never argue with the fundamentalists, because if you disagree with the fundamentalists, they fundamentally believe they are right, which consequently means that you're fundamentally wrong. And, you know, therapy is the hardest to do with people who are fundamental in their beliefs. We work in the gray, and the gray is where the magic happens. It's where growth happens. Somebody who only believes one opinion is right is missing out on a lot of truth. And so I think you make a good point there, Bonnie. Did you want to comment on that, Linda?
I was just going to say, maybe we should all go back to Susan Sontag's thing. And if we're going to, instead of worrying about unity, you know, preface it by worrying about courage first, having the courage to have the direction of going to the point of unity, but having that be a goal down the road. And so your point is well taken.
Thank you. Joy LePatner. You have to unmute, otherwise it's $1 to the Tzedakah box. Although you already sponsored this program.
Thank you, Joy, for sponsoring the program. She's not very good with computers, I can tell you that.
All right, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you.
The bottom, there's a little unmute button on the bottom of the screen, Joy. That's what you got to press.
We'll go to Ruth Schulman while Joy figures that out. Go ahead, Ruth. But you have to unmute too, my dear. Because as Linda began, she said, this is all about listening. And if we can't hear you, we can't listen.
I did it.
Joy, you go first, and then Ruth while she figures out how to unmute. Go ahead.
Yes, I can't even respond to people who are writing to me because I haven't figured that out. I understand what Leonie was talking about with the problems with political differences. I have them on both sides of my family, my own family and Howard's family. But I've learned how to deal with it. When I pick up the phone, well, I have to preface this by saying, as far as friends are concerned, it's not worth this much effort. So I've just disowned all my friends who don't feel the way I do. But as far as my family is concerned, it is definitely worth the effort. So before I pick up the phone or before I talk to them, I think about all the things I love about them and all the things that they have meant to me my entire life. And all the wonderful things we have done together and the fun we have. And I say, I'm going to focus on this. And we are not going to discuss politics. We're just going to talk about what we mean to each other and how much we care. And I find that they're willing to go along with that because they also love me. And I remind them that I'm their mother, I'm their sister, I'm their family. And it's the only way I've been able to get through these last few years, but it's worked. And I have salvaged a wonderful relationship with my brother, which I thought was going to be gone immediately. And also with Howard's family and the children and the grandchildren. They understand that we don't agree, but they respect and love us enough to just let it go.
Good for you, Joy. Good for you. That was really, that's wonderful, and that's very helpful. And that applies to a lot of things, not just politics. That
Yeah.
applies to a lot of things. Did you ever set a goal, something that you really thought, talking to everybody, if you ever set a goal, something that you really wanted to do and you worked really, really hard to do it, and then the goal was completed, and then for whatever reason, you couldn't quite figure out why you felt empty because you haven't yet made another goal, or maybe I didn't even need a goal, or why did I think that was so important? In other words, instead of concentrating on where you were going, instead of concentrating on where you are, you were so focused on where you were going that the discomfort of not having addressed this as you were going along kind of took over, you know, and goals, if your goal is to have a good, comfortable family relationship, if that's your goal, then what Joy said was really very helpful. It's you know, if you concentrate on what it is that we have in common and what we love about each other, and I mean, it can get silly and you can go off the deep end, and then you say, okay, to be continued, or something. But who wants ice cream? You know, but basically, in a more general tone, if you think about what have I done in the past when there have been conflicts to make things smooth over, and concentrate on where you've been successful, that's more predictive of how you're going to do in the future.
I so right on, Linda. And my friend Joy, I know I can say this. She always says to me, "Well, you know, I'm not religious." Well, I hate to tell you, Joy LePatner, that's the most religious answer you've ever given, and I'll tell you why. Because as Rabbi DePaulo just taught us in the previous session, if you begin your day with gratitude, if you begin every relationship in gratitude, that is an essential Jewish message, a religious message. And so I love that insight. So thank you for sharing that. And you are very religious. I just want to say that. Ruth Schulman.
I pray for peace every morning. And every morning I thank God for my many blessings. I don't think about what I can't do. I thank him for all that I can do. And I don't disown any friends because of differences. I've just learned my friends. I've got some friends who are passionate, different ways than I am, but because they're in love with Israel. I love Israel too, but those people I don't send political jokes to. I don't talk politics. I'm not going to lose, and I'm not looking to lose or quote disown friends. I just have learned what I can talk about with them and what is better left unsaid.
I'm really proud of you for being able to do that. That's great. That's really good, instructive, kind of builds on what my friend Joy said.
Absolutely. And, you know, for those who don't remember Ruth's talk from a few years ago, she was in a terrible car accident, which left her paralyzed in a wheelchair. And she wakes up every morning in gratitude and lives her life as a goal-oriented project. And you're an inspiration, Ruth. Thank you.
I'm not an inspiration.
Yes,
if you listen to my speech, every one of you is an inspiration because everybody wakes up with something not perfect. You happen to see my challenges. Everybody wakes up with challenges. They may be mental challenges, emotional challenges.
I think I'm going to give you a job. I said, I'm gonna give you, are you ready to go to work? I'm going to give you a job. I think
She's
Yeah, I'm looking, I'm retired happily, and I spend my retirement playing Maj. But I'm also happy to make some extra pocket money. But the point is, everybody wakes up with challenges, and they may have, you happen to see my medical challenges, but I know plenty of people who come to work every day with a smile on their face despite medical challenges that they can't see.
well, that's well said, Ruth. Thank you. I would just add to that, as Rabbi Goldmark taught me, everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And if we appreciate life in that way, everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about. We all are filled with angst and challenges and sadnesses and losses, as well as all the positive as well. But everybody contains those emotions, and we need to appreciate that as well.
You know, in the last few weeks, I keep hearing people talk about existential dread, you know, where people are feeling like they've lost control of their life in some area. And as you said, you know, we're all affected by what's going on, just talking about the pandemic. But we're all in different boats. You know, everybody's got their own challenges or whatever. And we can learn from the existentialists who think of it's not dread, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to strut your stuff and show what you're made of. You know, it's like there was something. The Week magazine is my favorite magazine, and I can't wait to get it every week. And you know, it's a really good synopsis of what's going on, and it's you know, even and I can get a little bit of what's going on all the sides and whatever. And there was a little piece in there that there's a law firm back east someplace that's offering a free divorce for anybody who wrote the best essay about how the pandemic screwed up their marriage. Now that, I mean, that speaking of being a pessimist, that's terrible. So I decided I'm offering 3 perk up your life virtual sessions for anyone who writes the best essay on how the pandemic, how they've survived successfully through the pandemic. So anybody who cares to submit that, the winner gets me for 3 virtual
Love that.
hours.
Thank you for sharing that, Linda. Brenda Colgate. Calling on Brenda.
Okay.
Hi, and happy belated birthday, Rabbi. And thank you so much. I just tuned in a little bit late, but I just really, really appreciate all of this conversation today and with all of the workshops I've attended. One of the things I challenged was with the boundaries as well, but I set this year as an intention about, I wanted to speak to vulnerability. Is like just being vulnerable to open up yourself a little bit and understand other people's perceptions and vision. And I know that unity is really out there and a lot of things are upsetting, but just being able to see perspective in other people's opinions and not make judgments is something that I'm challenged right now to do, but I'm trying really hard because, you know, we all have our own concepts of what we think is right. And we just need more balance. But I'm finding that when I put myself out there more, like right now I'm talking to all of you, being vulnerable, it's helping a lot. And just using this as a tool, listening to you. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Linda, how do people apply? Can they just do it through your email?
Do it through my email. Yeah, dr.linda@cox.net. Right. You just
Awesome.
write some comments about your resilience through this pandemic, and the best one wins.
Okay, we'll go Ellen, Sherry, and then Lois.
Thank you. So I've been listening to this and I have a few thoughts, and it follows really well on what Brenda just said, actually. Um, eh, Dr. Algazi talked about the importance of listening, and Rabbi Steinberg talked about living kind of in the gray area, that there's not necessarily a right and wrong. And I see that from a Jewish perspective, that we as Jews struggle all the time. And that's part of a central part of who we are. And if we can listen to others, and maybe we don't agree, but try to understand the perspective of the other. It's like putting yourself in the shoes of the other. And we still may not agree, but it's, I think, a matter of respecting different opinions. It is a hard time right now. We're so divided as a country, but I think from a human, civil, and a Jewish approach, that's really important. So that's how I see it.
You know, I don't know, Linda, if you have a comment on that, but connecting what you said to Leonie's question from a while ago, one challenge that you might give to your person you're in conversation with is to use the talking stick. That the person who's speaking gets the talking stick and you cannot interrupt them no matter how much they're making you crazy. And then the other person gets to use the talking stick and you cannot interrupt them at all. It's like being completely present, not trying to think of the next thing to say or the next argument. It's just, I mean, Brenda kind of said it beautifully, being vulnerable, but in an opposite way. Taking that deep breath, letting the person express themselves, and something might happen. The tension might lower if somebody can express themselves, because when you yell and somebody yells back at you, boom, 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 the stress goes up, the tension goes up. If you let somebody talk, and you don't respond, it's really quite remarkable. And so next time you're in a disagreement with somebody, pull out the talking stick and see if that might be a challenge psychologically to you. Forget them, just do it for yourself.
Okay, let me show you my talking stick. I have a talking stick to demonstrate. This is a magic wand, and it's a wonderful talking stick. All right, it was given to me, pardon me, but it was given to me by a hooker, by a lady who identified herself as making a living as a hooker. But I've used it for other purposes. So it is a wonderful, wonderful tool. So I love what you said, and I just happen to have it sitting here. So I thought I'd demonstrate.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you know, I mean, as therapists, oftentimes, you know, you're a referee, and sometimes you have to sit people on different sides of the room and let one talk and let the other one talk. But we can do that exercise ourselves as well. Sherry, and then Lois, and then Wendy.
I use a talking stick in the classroom often, and I used it with my Cub Scouts because those were energetic boys when I was a Cub Scout leader. Sort of changing the subject a little bit, I'm wondering if you could talk about how it's very hard for people to get mental health services because many insurances just don't treat it as like a real illness. And if you had resources just for the general population, I know a few people can't go to therapy because therapists, they're $150 to $200, and some, unless you have a platinum plan or something, it's very hard to get resources. And now with the pandemic, people need it more than ever. So I'm just wondering if you could talk about that. Hopefully with the new administration, new representatives, things will change. But I'm just curious your thoughts on all of that from a financial perspective. And if it's not a discussion for now, you can be later.
It's a very real discussion. I'll take it first, and then Susan, I'd like you to comment as well if you'd like. Sherry, mental health parity is a huge issue and one we work on certainly every day. And I could just go on and on about this. Be Well, for example, is working on a plan. You know how hard it is to find a psychiatrist, particularly a child psychiatrist? It can take you 4 months to get to a child psychiatrist. Unless you're paying cash, of course, then you can see that psychiatrist within a week. And so Be Well is working on a program where Be Well will create a network where Be Well will pay the psychiatrist right away, and then the Be Well will fight with the insurance companies. So we're working on it every single day. But to answer your question for today, there are several training clinics where student therapists are working with people. And I know that might sound at very low cost. Who wants to send their child to or wants themselves to go to a student therapist? I'll tell you what, sometimes it's the best treatment you can get because they're being supervised 100% of the time. You're getting two therapists for the price of one. You're getting their supervisor and you're getting them. And you can get it at a very low cost. And I can send you those resources, or the whole temple those resources. So that's one way in the immediate to deal with it. Susan and then Linda.
Yeah, those are really great thoughts, Rabbi Steinberg. I also wanted to offer myself as a resource as well. You're absolutely correct in your question. We live in such a bifurcated, fractured mental health delivery system of care. As Rabbi Steinberg mentioned, I do hope that the Be Well Coalition and the organization starts to piece those puzzle pieces together. But in the meantime, the hospital that I work at, we have hundreds of persons most knowledgeable with regard to mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse resources. My nurses, my psychiatrists, my case managers, the social workers, they're the ones that deal with all of these different fractured pieces. And I oftentimes offer up myself and my team to meet with family members, community members, and really be a resource to the community. So all of you are happy to reach out to me or anyone at my hospital anytime. I will drop my email address in the chat. And I absolutely mean it. Send me an email and we'll coordinate something so you can get some more information. Because we're really all in this together. It really takes a community to figure out these resources as we stand today.
That's super generous of you, Susan. And she is telling the truth. She'll respond beautifully, as she has many times when I've reached out for families in need. So thank you, Susan. Linda, did you have a thought on that?
No, I think you guys did a great job. I have nothing to add to that. That's
okay. Lois Gorin, you have to unmute, my dear. $1 to the tzedakah box.
Okay. Okay. First,
there we go.
Happy birthday again, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Second, hi, Linda. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
A couple of just comments. Many years ago, David, my husband, and I were honored at a different synagogue when we belonged with another couple. And with this couple, we had traveled with them. I have to be careful because Linda knows who they are. We were always on opposite sides of the political fence. And David and I got the short stick, and they always were kind of bragging. And Rabbi, you remember last year, October, I fell and broke my hip. And this person knew I had seen her at the pharmacy coming home from the hospital. Long story short, David and I were very kind to her after her husband died. As I say, we were travel mates. We had been honored together, and she blew up at me because I made a comment about a certain president. And I wrote back and I said, I'm trying to heal. I'm under a lot of stress. And I was really hurt that she would throw all this political stuff at me at a time when I don't appreciate it. And friendship went south. We've seen each other, we nod, but it really broke my heart to think that someone who's been so close over almost 20 years was willing to let my friendship go after all that we had been to them. But I guess that's life. And, obviously I moved on, but it made me really wonder about this person that I valued so much, that this was like a hidden or underlying quality or lack of quality in this person. And the thing that I really wanted to say the most is Ruth Schulman has been an amazing lady in my life. I know she doesn't know that because I really haven't told her. But as you know, I lead 2 book groups now at Shir Hamalot, and it's been a great joy because I have met some absolutely marvelous women. And Ruth has been one of those. When COVID first started, she invited me to her home or outside where I sat. And when I went home, I had this long talk. On my way home, I had this long talk with myself about this marvelous lady who's in a wheelchair, and you all know her handicaps, and we talk about it sometimes at the book group. I have never heard her complain. And after that happened, shortly after, I hired someone to help me full time with my husband. And I don't think I've complained once. And it's really because of Ruth. And the book group has been a wonderful, wonderful thing for me to make all these new friends as a new member. So I just wanted to add those couple of things. I hope Ruth is still on.
She sure is. Thank you so much, Lois, for sharing that. And she's blushing. I can see Ruth blushing. Linda, did you want to comment on the first part of that kind of painful story that Lois shared with
Part
us?
was losing a friend.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get back to the fact that, you know, we've all been challenged in the same way in this horrible year that's just passed. You know, I know there's good things that's happened too, but you don't really know what was going on in that person's life when, you know, I think there's got to be room for some forgiveness given what's going on. You know what your challenges are and were, and if you felt that she was being negligent in her responses, you don't really know where that was coming from. You know, there's got to be room for some forgiveness here.
Well, when you say that, Linda, what do you mean? You mean, should I forget the whole thing happened? Is that what you mean?
No, but it might be time, if you really value that friendship, to talk about, like some other people have said today, you know, talk about what it was about your friendship that you really enjoyed, and maybe there's a way of healing that. You know, you can say it's a short life, it's a long life. You know, there's room for change as time goes on. If I didn't believe in change, I'd be the biggest phony in the world. I've been doing this for 40 years, you know.
No, I understand that. I understand. Well, I'll have to think about that. I think too much time has passed. I mean, I don't have the desire, to be honest. I don't know.
That's a choice. That's
a choice.
a choice.
That's a choice.
And then that's a choice. And then, of course, once you know, that's an existential idea as well. And once you accept that that's a choice, then you have to accept the consequences of it.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing, Lois, the story. I would just challenge you just a bit. I think if you were over it, you might not have raised it here. So maybe it's worth more to you than you might think. And we all do that, by the way, that we think something we're done with it. In fact, it's living within us pretty richly and coming out in different ways. So addressing it might be worth it. Maybe it wouldn't be, but certainly something to think about. Wendy Bacoda.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm changing the subject a little bit. Kind of, it just sparked an interest when you were talking about the talking stick. Those of us with young adult children, they're not children, they're young adults, but whether they're living at home or not. And I found with mine that are all in different states, they're finding the need to talk more, and I love it. They call every day. Sometimes I have the time to talk, sometimes I don't, but I try to. But it's really interesting, and it's a challenge as a parent of when to talk, when to listen. And, you know, I found during the pandemic, I'm kind of supporting everybody else. I think we as mothers are finding that it's hard to get as much support. So 2 different comments here. One is, thank you for this group, because I think during the pandemic, I have found support from my synagogue during a time when I feel like I'm having to give more support to my family, because everybody is dealing with these challenges. But the talking and the listening is just, it's very interesting, and it's a challenge with kids and young adults, whether you agree with what they're doing or not, with, you know, don't agree, to not challenge them. They just sometimes just need to talk, and maybe this isn't the time to be questioning everything they're doing. And I just throw out an instance, it was just so fascinating to me. Our son called, and this was a while ago, but I was on the phone with him probably for maybe 45 minutes. And I don't think I said more than 2 words. And by the end of the conversation, he said, "Mom,
thank you.
That was the best conversation we've ever had. Thank you so much." I was blown away. And I didn't even realize what I was doing. And it took me afterwards thinking, wow, all I did was listen, and I didn't ask him any questions. And he found it to be the most powerful experience. So anyway, it's a real balance though. It's a real balance, and something I think about all the time is the balance between talking and listening.
Amen. So somebody once said, God gave us one mouth and two ears. That means we should listen twice as much as we speak. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there. Any other questions before we, yes, Bonnie, you have to unmute.
Okay, dollar into the tzedakah box. We've all had strains on relationships with friends and family and stuff over politics, which used to be, so I'm thinking because I've been around a while, one of the three things you never talked about. But in this polarized world and social media stirrings up, I am no longer friendly with someone on the East Coast because of, it was interesting. It wasn't so much politics. We had agreed not to, not to comment on each other's political feelings, although she would comment on mine and then I would comment back, but it was all very respectful and dealing with facts. But then I objected to something which I never did that she wrote, that was a poem about the right to hate. And I said, this poem is very, it was misleading because it's someone with an absolutely beautiful voice and an Irish accent, and it was poetic, but ultimately was about the right to hate. And it brought in, I guess it was at the time with Black Lives Matters, but it brought in not only Blacks, put nicely, with all these, she was like, some of my best friends are Black, about Blacks, LBGTB, and then they threw in the Rothschilds, which is code for anti-Semitism, and part of her family is Jewish. She's Catholic, and I wrote back and I said, I'm so stressed over you thinking, you exalting a right to hate. Doesn't this bother you that it offends me as your friend, that I find this hurtful and surprises me in you? And she said, well, no, because I don't feel that way and I have the right to do it. And then she did a kiss emoji, and I didn't answer right away because I was so taken aback. And then she unfollowed me. And it was the hate that bothered me. It wasn't, and I keep thinking back about, our friendship and what a wonderful person she was. It's a group of friends for 11 years. And that was the worst part. And ultimately, I don't want to be in the same side or in the same conversation with anyone who is raising hate to an acceptable level. Nothing to do with their political views. It's their views on hatred.
I think if the way you talked about it is the way you handled it, I think you handled it the best you could. And there's two sides to every story. And if she needed to unfriend you, then so be it. If, you've made your point, this is important to me, and maybe sometime in the future it will be different. And, just like we said, I also wanted to point to the Lois. The other thing that I have on my desk that's been very helpful, that was given to me by Barbara Stern, that she got from the Museum of Broken Relationships. It says bad memories eraser, which is a kick, and there are some times when you can't heal it because you have to have somebody at the other side who's willing to, play with you,
I agree. I think that it's like somebody wrote recently, if you find yourself standing next to a Nazi, you're on the wrong side. I mean, I don't want to be on the side standing next to a Nazi,
right,
preaching hate.
I thank you for that insight, and I like that eraser, the memory eraser. Of course, we have Yom Kippur that comes every year, and forgiveness isn't about blame, that you're wrong. Sometimes we have to just open up space to let things go, or to seek that forgiveness, or to accept somebody's forgiveness. It is a challenge, and we Jews don't get off so easy, in that there's a sense of responsibility that comes along with being in that healthier space. So Linda, I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for your wisdom, your insights. Susan, I want to thank you too for your generous offer and for your insights as well. I just want to spend 1 minute talking about all of our mental health. Statistics time and again have shown that people's involvement in a community, be a spiritual faith-based community, increases one's mental health. The invitation is open. Nobody would ever say of Shir Hamalot, we don't have a lot of programs. There's something literally to do every single day and be part of the community. And I hope no matter where you are on the political spectrum, no matter what belief you have on this or that, you feel valued and honored and hugged whenever you come into the presence of our temple community. We are here to lift one another up. And I can tell you, as your rabbi and as a therapist, part of the pain of our mental health struggles right now is this sense of alienation and isolation. And so Zoom is two-dimensional. I hope to get back to our three-dimensional world, but I'll take two-dimensional if I have to, so that I can see your faces and see you smile. Rabbi Ziv, Rabbi DePaulo, and myself, it's our honor for you to call upon us. People say, oh, I don't want to bother you. You know, you're so busy. No, this is what we're busy doing. This is what we want to do. We are here for one another, to hold one another up. Linda has offered an essay contest for 3 sessions with her. Susan has offered to help anybody in crisis that might need help. We are here for one another, and you don't need professionals either, by the way. It's just one another. Lois gives the beautiful example of the book club. I mean, what a wonderful thing that common ground, no one person's like common ground, reading the same book and then sharing your expressions, but it has nothing to do with the book. It has to do with our connections one to the other and a great leader who brings people together. I mean, whether it's Shabbat services, the board meeting, being a madricha in